Welcome to US Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Ryder Cup 2023 live, golf scores and updates from Europe vs USA. Bassitt reaches milestone as Jays beat Yankees 6-0, Toronto closes in on playoffs. Missing economic data will test alternatives in US shutdown. Thailand investment chiefs look to enter new phase under Sretha. The creator's ingenious Android action will set your seat rattling. Ryder Cup 2023 live, golf scores and updates from Europe vs USA. The Independent. The Ryder Cup begins today with Europe and the USA playing 4 matches of foursomes at Marco Simone in Rome. Captains Luke Donald and Zach Johnson have selected their pairings for the first session of what promises to be a gripping team golf battle. Jon Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton combine for an exciting opening pair to take on Scottie Scheffler and Sam Burns, while Rory McIlroy and Tommy Fleetwood battle Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. Europe's team are united in their quest to regain the Ryder Cup after their record 19-9 defeat at Whistling Straits in 2021. The quartet of Hatton, Fleetwood, McIlroy, and Matt Fitzpatrick, who were part of the losing team in 2021, all have their own way of describing what is driving them this week at Marco Simone in Rome, but it all points in the same direction. English duo Tyrrell Hatton and Matt Fitzpatrick have spoken of revenge, compatriot Tommy Fleetwood preferred the word motivated, and Rory McIlroy went with determined. Ultimately, they all want to regain the Ryder Cup and are focused on doing whatever it takes to make it happen. Bassitt reaches milestone as Jays beat Yankees 6-0, Toronto closes in on playoffs. The Toronto Star. Chris Bassitt of the Toronto Blue Jays achieved his personal goal of pitching 200 innings in a season for the first time in his career during a game against the New York Yankees on Thursday. Bassitt struck out Yankee slugger Aaron Judge for the final out of his 7 2/3 inning performance, helping the Blue Jays win 6-0 and take a step toward clinching a postseason berth. Bassitt expressed his gratitude to the organization for believing in him and stated that reaching 200 innings is a benchmark for elite pitchers. Missing economic data will test alternatives in US shutdown. Japan Times. The imminent US government shutdown is set to test policymakers' and investors' reliance on third-party economic indicators. Without key figures from government agencies, private sector sources will take the spotlight. These indicators include gauges of business activity, private payrolls, and existing home sales, which inform Federal Reserve officials in their efforts to tackle inflation. Thailand investment chiefs look to enter new phase under Sretha. Nikkei Asia. The Eastern Economic Corridor, EEC, in Thailand will remain competitive despite plans for a minimum wage increase in the country, according to officials overseeing the EEC. The EEC, a special economic zone, has attracted $42 billion in investment since its launch in 2018. The government plans to raise the minimum wage to THB $413.67 per day from THB $328 this year, with a target of THB $600 per day by 2027. The EEC's new 5-year strategy, which has an investment target of THB 500 BN, will focus on creating supply chain clusters in areas such as digital and electronics, automotive, and green economy. The creator's ingenious Android action will set your seat rattling. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Creator, directed by Gareth Edwards, is set in a dystopian world where androids have caused destruction and divided nations. Joshua Taylor, a former Special Forces agent, embarks on a mission to find his lost love and destroy a dangerous android weapon. However, his fellow agents turn out to be more brutal than the enemy, and the weapon is a young girl programmed to be a time bomb. The film is visually impressive, but it suffers from repetition, plot holes, and an inconsistent ending. The Creator will be in theaters from September 28. Never discussed, Timor president denies military cooperation with China. The Sydney Morning Herald. Timor-Leste has dismissed concerns over a possible military alliance with China after the signing of the Comprehensive Strategic Framework between the two countries. The agreement signed last week covered development cooperation in agriculture and infrastructure. President José Ramos Horta insisted that there was no talk of military cooperation but suggested that Timor-Leste might accept a loan from China in the future. He added that the country would not accept any loan with high interest payments, and stressed that Timor-Leste would not be a security concern to its neighbors. U.S. National Security Agency unveils Artificial Intelligence Security Center. Al Jazeera. The U.S. National Security Agency, NSA, is creating an Artificial Intelligence Security Center to oversee the development and integration of AI capabilities within U.S. defense and intelligence services. The AI Center will be part of the NSA's Cybersecurity Collaboration Center and will promote the secure adoption of new AI capabilities across the national security enterprise and defense industry base. The move comes as the U.S. seeks to maintain its leadership in AI development and prevent malicious foreign actors from obtaining U.S. innovations in AI. Evergrande's extended yuan bonds are another risk hurdle for developer. Bloomberg. China Evergrande Group's failure to make a payment on a bond is raising concerns about the effectiveness of recent debt extensions granted by Chinese investors. The missed payment adds to the liquidation risks for Evergrande, which has been facing financial distress. The company's chairman has been placed under police control, and Evergrande scrapped creditor meetings for votes on its offshore debt restructuring plan. The missed payment raises questions about Evergrande's cash flow and its ability to meet obligations on its other bonds, on which payment extensions were granted. Evergrande has not provided immediate comment on the matter. Trading of Evergrande unit Hengda Real Estate Group's extended yuan bonds has been suspended since March 2022. Australian Defence Minister says Army will stop flying European-designed Taipan helicopters. Associated Press. The Australian Army will permanently ground its fleet of MRH-90 Taipan helicopters following a crash in July in which 4 soldiers were killed. The fleet has been grounded since July 28 when one of the helicopters crashed into the Pacific Ocean during a training operation. Defense Minister Richard Marles said that ending Taipan flying operations was the only logical decision, allowing the US-built Black Hawk helicopters to be deployed as soon as possible. Australia announced plans in January to replace the Taipans with 40 UH-60M Black Hawks. Wisconsin Senate committee votes against confirmation for 4 DNR Policy Board appointees. Associated Press. Republicans who control the state Senate's Sporting Heritage Committee voted Thursday against confirming 4 of Democratic Governor Tony Evers' appointees to the Department of Natural Resources Policy Board, a move that could delay a board vote on the agency's contentious wolf management plan. The committee voted against confirming Sharon Adams, Dylan Jennings, Sandra D. Noss and Jim Vandenbroek on a 3-2 vote for each appointee. All 3 committee Republicans voted against confirmation for each appointee. The 2 Democrats on the committee voted to confirm the appointees. The committee voted unanimously to recommend confirming Evers appointee Paul Burr. Gregor Chisholm, Blue Jays lineup changes helped them break out against Yankees and inch closer to playoffs. The Toronto Star. The Toronto Blue Jays defeated the New York Yankees 6-0 on Thursday, moving one step closer to clinching a spot in the postseason. After being shut out in the first 2 games of the series, the Blue Jays offense came to life in the series finale. Dalton Varsho, Matt Chapman, and Brandon Belt all hit home runs to help secure the victory. Toronto manager John Schneider shuffled up his batting order in an effort to spark his offense, and the new lineup proved successful. The Blue Jays now have 1 more win than the Houston Astros, who hold the 3rd wild-card spot, and 3 more wins than the Seattle Mariners. 2 wins against the Tampa Bay Rays in their upcoming series will officially clinch a playoff berth for Toronto. The Blue Jays are also fighting for seeding, with a chance to play either the Rays or the Minnesota Twins in the first round of the playoffs. East Timor says not seeking China military ties, Australia can sleep at peace. South China Morning Post. East Timor has stated that it has not discussed military cooperation with China as part of its upgrade of diplomatic ties. Australia and Indonesia need not be concerned about East Timor posing a security threat to its neighbors. China has been increasing its assertiveness in efforts to form security ties with developing countries in proximity to Australia, a move which has raised concerns in Canberra. However, East Timor has signed a comprehensive strategic framework with China which covers development cooperation in agriculture and infrastructure, not military exchanges. Asian stocks inch away from 10-month low, rate jitters linger. Reuters. Asian shares bounced back slightly from their lowest levels in 10 months but are still set to record their worst quarterly performance in a year. Concerns over high interest rates continue to impact sentiment, while the dollar remains strong. The MSCI Asia-Pacific Index is on track to drop 5% in the July-September period, its worst quarterly performance since last year. The recent rise in Treasury yields and the Federal Reserve's hawkish stance have also weighed on risk sentiment. Investors are now focusing on the U.S. Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index for the latest view on inflation. Appeals court will not delay Trump's civil fraud trial. Japan Times. Donald Trump's request to delay his civil fraud trial has been denied by a New York appeals court. The former U.S. president had accused the trial judge of wrongfully refusing to dismiss most of the case. The trial is set to proceed as scheduled on October 2. Trial begins over whether experimental autopilot caused driver's death. The Guardian. Lawyers representing victims of a fatal Tesla crash that killed the driver and injured 2 passengers, including an 8-year-old boy, have blamed the company's autopilot driver assist system in the opening statement of a trial in California. The lawsuit accuses Tesla of knowing that the autopilot system was defective when it sold the car. The lawyer representing the plaintiffs argued that the system was not yet ready for release when the owner purchased the car. Tesla has denied the claims and said that the crash was caused by human error. That's all for today's news update, folks. I'm Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world. Let's take a moment to recap the highlights. In sports, the Ryder Cup is underway, with Europe and the USA battling it out on the golf course. The European team is determined to regain the cup after their defeat in 2021. In baseball, Chris Bassitt of the Toronto Blue Jays reached a personal milestone by pitching 200 innings in a season for the first time in his career. The U.S. government shutdown is looming, and it will test policymakers' and investors' reliance on third-party economic indicators. Meanwhile, Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor remains competitive despite plans for a minimum wage increase. In entertainment, The Creator, a dystopian film directed by Gareth Edwards, is hitting theaters. And in international news, Timor-Leste denies any military cooperation with China, while the U.S. National Security Agency unveils an artificial intelligence security center. In business news, concerns are rising over China Evergrande Group's missed bond payment and the effectiveness of recent debt extensions. The Australian Army will permanently ground its fleet of MRH-90 Taipan helicopters following a fatal crash. And in U.S. politics, Donald Trump's request to delay his civil fraud trial has been denied. Lastly, a trial has begun over whether Tesla's autopilot system was responsible for a fatal crash. Now, it's time to hear from you, my dear viewers. What are your thoughts on today's news? Let's dive into the discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.